What's happening? Thanks for joining me on this Sunday morning. I told you that if something broke, we would be all over it. We would be right here to talk about what the Patriots decided to do with their head coach situation. And here we are on Sunday morning, 5:11 a.m. on January 12th. And we've got Mike Vrabel as the next head coach of the New England Patriots. This is not a surprise. It's not a shock. We all thought it was headed this way. As soon as Gerard Mayo was let go on Sunday, it felt like the Patriots had Vrabel in their crosshairs. He was the guy that they wanted. He was the guy that they were going to go after. Full court press on Vrabel, right? Full court press. Got this thing done very quickly. Mayo was gone on Sunday. We found out that Vrabel was going to interview by Monday. We found out on Tuesday that Vrabel was going to interview on Thursday. They have the interview on Thursday. And as I've been tweeting out over the past couple of days, and you can follow me at Nick C Radio right there, as I've been tweeting out the last couple of days, the Patriots did not have any other interviews scheduled after Ben Johnson on Friday morning. Mike Vrabel did not have any other interviews scheduled after he sat down with the Patriots on Thursday. That told us exactly what was happening. And what was happening was Vrabel wanted New England wanted Vrabel, and they were going to make it work. In any way that they could, they were going to make this thing work. Vrabel was going to be the head coach of this franchise, and they got the deal done. I even gave a timeline a couple days ago. I mean, if you want to get away from a terrible season, move on from Mayo, fans, you want them to not forget, but maybe put it on the back burner that you lost the number 1 pick overall by beating Buffalo last Sunday. If you want to kind of move this thing forward and dominate the headlines for 2 weeks, if you're Robert Kraft and the Patriots, this is precisely what you do. You say goodbye to Mayo immediately. You leak out the interview requests. You leak out the times of when you're going to interview Vrabel and Ben Johnson. You have those interviews, and then you leak to the media over the weekend during the playoffs that you're getting closer with Vrabel. You're negotiating a contract with Vrabel. That's what you do, right? Vrabel and the Patriots negotiating a deal. We heard that yesterday. And then what do? Of course, you leak it this morning during the pregame shows. So ESPN Countdown, right? They can talk about Vrabel going to the Patriots, and you have Teddy Bruschi waxing poetic about his former teammate. You'll have the NFL Network talking about Vrabel to the Patriots. And then when you have all the other pregame shows before these playoff games today, one of the top stories is going to be Mike Vrabel is the next head coach of the New England Patriots. I would imagine that either tomorrow or Tuesday we'll have the pomp and circumstance press conference, and then that will help you control the headlines throughout the entire week. So this is what you do. This is how you dominate the PR game. This is how you try to get your fans to move on from a truly terrible 2024 season, and you have your fans looking forward. This is what you do. I mean, just think about it. A week ago, we were getting ready for the Buffalo game. A week ago, we're talking about the number 1 pick. A week ago, we all felt terrible with the Patriots beating Buffalo and dropping from the 1st pick to the 4th pick. 7 days later, there's an energy, there's a vibe, there's an excitement. I don't think it's from every fan. I think there were plenty of fans that wanted Ben Johnson to be the guy, and I understand that. We talked about Johnson on Friday. But this is a new energy, a new vibe, a new feel, and I think a lot of fans are going to be happy with this announcement today. I think a lot of fans are going to be thrilled with Mike Vrabel being the next head coach. By the way, according to the NFL Network with Rappaport and Pelissero and Garofolo, apparently Vrabel never interviewed with the Raiders because Vrabel told Tom Brady, quote, "I'm going to end up going back to New England," unquote. So Vrabel knew, Brady knew, Brady was not going to, kneecap Robert Kraft. That was not going to happen. Doug Kyde, from someone who spent last year with Mike Vrabel in Cleveland, quote, "One of the most brilliant minds I've had the pleasure of working with. He's an extremely hard worker, but incredibly efficient. His passion for the game is evident in everything he does. Andrew Callahan, league source on Vrabel to the Patriots. Great leader. Will bring instant credibility with the players. They will be a tough and physical team that is well coached and prepared. Will be brutally honest with everyone in the building. That will rub some the wrong way, but it is likely needed there. And that's where I start. That's where I start with this. And thanks for jumping on in as we have this breaking news podcast. Mike Vrabel, newest head coach of the New England Patriots. Don't forget, as you watch this breaking news pod, to give us that thumbs up. More likes means more eyeballs. Drive the algorithm right. So don't forget to like this channel, to like this podcast as you watch. Those thumbs up mean an awful lot. Don't forget to throw your comments in. I see a bunch of you commenting. I'm not going to be able to get to a lot of the comments because there's so many flying in. But don't forget to comment. The likes and the comments help us with the algorithm. They build this community. And, of course, subscribe. Trying to hit 5,500 subscribers. We're now, I think, almost at 5,350. So we're getting closer and closer. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want your thoughts to be known to me and to the world, don't forget to send a super chat. I see a couple of them. See a couple of super chats, which I'll get to. If you want to jump to the front of the line, you can do so by sending the super chat. All right, so let's get into this. I love it. I love the move. I love the hiring. Mike Vrabel was my guy last year. He was my guy last year. We found out about Gerard Mayo's succession language, quote unquote, in his contract. It was a fait accompli that Mayo was going to be the head coach because of his contract. But before we found all of that out, Mike Vrabel was at the top of my list. Mike Vrabel has a reputation throughout the league as a very good head coach, as a very smart head coach. You talk about clock management. You talk about timeout usage. You want to mention the rules and how he played around with the rules, even against Belichick going back a few years ago. Very, very smart head coach. You're not going to be scratching your head on how this team is going to handle the clock late in a game or handle the clock late in a half. His strategical knowledge is very, very high. He also makes this a serious football program, folks. You know, what we've seen the last couple of years, even with Belichick, with the fracture within that coaching staff in 2023, what happened this year with Gerard Mayo, whether it was during the game, after the game, the Monday morning moonwalks with Gerard Mayo, right? The walking it back constantly. This franchise became unserious very quickly. And a lot of people were cracking jokes. Vrabel walking into the building right now, right? Vrabel walking in, Vrabel being the guy, makes this program a serious program immediately. And that's what this needed. That's what this franchise needed. They needed an experienced guy. They needed somebody who can build a culture. They needed somebody who could set the tone across the building. They needed somebody who was going to make sure that players were accountable and staff were accountable. And that's Vrabel. You want to talk about accountability? That's what he's going to bring. Everybody in that locker room is going to be accountable. There's not going to be any Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson nightmares before a game. If Vrabel's going to bench somebody, that guy is going to be benched. There aren't going to be walkbacks on Monday mornings. There aren't going to be walkbacks on EEI or talking about it on 98.5 The Sports Up. He is a legitimate, credible, well-respected head coach. And I think he was the best candidate on the market. And Diana Rossini tweeted this earlier. Every single team that has an opening wanted to talk to Mike Vrabel. The fact he didn't take all of these interviews is, again, because he knew he was coming to New England. He knew the Patriots wanted him. Patriots knew that he wanted them. Go back to Tony Pauline a couple weeks ago, Sportskeeda, right? We've been following this on the podcast throughout the last few weeks. The crumbs had been laid. You just connect the dots, and it was very easy to figure out. After the Arizona game, Vrabel's interest is known. After the Buffalo game, there's a lot of quiet, right? Radio silence, so to speak. Then following the Chargers debacle, Tony Pauline comes out with Sportskeeda with a report telling all of us that Mike Vrabel not only wants to, coach again, but that the Patriots were at the top of his list. That's not a coincidence, folks. Not a coincidence. Everybody knew. I found it very entertaining the way that writers were trying to tell us that Vrabel was going to be the Patriots head coach without telling us directly that he was going to be the Patriots head coach. Right? I found it very, very, very entertaining. Very entertaining. Everybody knew this was going to happen. So we're talking about experience. We're talking about somebody who has run a program. He walks into the building. He knows, right? He knows nutrition. He knows the workout program. He knows what he wants to do for training camp. He knows all of these things. He's already done it for years. He gets it. He understands how to set plans and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to look like in June, July, August. This is how we're going to run the preseason. Are we going to do joint practices? If we do joint practices, this is how we're going to do joint practices. How long are our practices going to be? Like all of these things, all of these details, making sure the defensive coordinator's on top of it, the offensive coordinator's on top of it. Understanding the entire mosaic and how to be a head coach. And that's one of the biggest things for me with Ben Johnson, as we talked about on Friday. You know, this idea that Ben Johnson had never done it. You don't know who Ben Johnson is. You don't know what he's going to be. You don't know how he's going to lead a room, if he's going to lead a room. We don't know any of it. We know exactly who Mike Vrabel is. We know what he brings to the table. And that's what this organization needed. This organization needed stability. They needed stability from the head coach position. Somebody that could run the show. And Vrabel is a run-the-show kind of guy. Precisely what they needed. You get pulled in 1,000 different directions as a head coach. For somebody who just took the job, as we saw with Gerard Mayo, even if you have been a coordinator and you have more experience than Mayo did, which frankly isn't tough, you still don't know. You sit down in your office the first day, you're getting pulled everywhere in that building. You don't know where to go, what to say, how to do it. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to run camp. Here's what Ben Jones said, former Titans offensive lineman, to Mike Giardi this week at Boston Sports Journal. Giardi writes, don't worry about lines being blurred. The players will know exactly who Vrabel is and what he's about. Here's what Jones said, quote, what sets him apart from every other coach is he is a head coach. He's not a defensive coordinator. He's not an offensive coordinator. He is a leader of men. Everything runs through him in that building, and he has a heartbeat in the O-line room, the tight ends room. He spends time in every room where a lot of these coaches are calling plays or doing that, and they lose the heartbeat of the team because they're not spending much time with everybody. Ben Jones says Vrabel won't do that, and I think that's what makes him special. He's got his hands in everything, right? He's got his hands in all of the pots as the head coach. And as we just said, somebody out in Cleveland talked about not only how brilliant Mike Vrabel is, but how he is incredibly efficient with his time. He knows exactly what he's got to do, how to get it done, and how quickly he can get it done. Some might say it's an adult in the room, right? He's a leader of men. Mark Daniels tweets out, one NFL executive on the Patriots hiring Vrabel, great hire. Blends a lot of principles that Bill instilled in the years that they won a lot of football games, but does it with his own style and blend of original thoughts. And that part's very, very important because I know a lot of people say, oh, this is just another Belichick, right? It's another Belichick. This is another, Patriot way guy. Vrabel has his own way, folks. He has his own way how he handles his business. And as that executive told Mark Daniels, yeah, he blends a lot of the principles from Belichick, but as the guy says or the girl says, he does it with his own style and blend of original thoughts. He does it his way. Vrabel's he shows much more empathy towards his players. He's willing to, work with players in a different way. Whether it was Jadeveon Clowney when they were in Houston together and he used to text Clowney certain things because Clowney used to be on his phone. And he would send him videos on his phone because Vrabel realized that Clowney picks up what you're putting down much better through the phone instead of, antiquated ways of teaching him. Whether it's the stories from Ben Jones and Derrick Henry and Taylor Lewan when they were in Tennessee about how Vrabel handled people and handled personal situations. Vrabel would give Derrick Henry time off during the week in his practice schedule because he knew that they were going to lean on Henry because the offense was based off Derrick Henry. So he would work with Henry. He would accommodate Henry time-wise. So he has his own way of doing things, but he's going to keep you accountable. He's going to bring stability. Here's what Logan Ryan said about Vrabel's accountability. This was Karen Garigian, a column in Mass Live. Quote, "You're not going to win games if your best players don't play their best consistently. Vrabel definitely challenged the best players to the same accountability as the bottom players on the roster. It's not like that everywhere, and it doesn't work everywhere. I think Dan Campbell challenges his players. I know Kyle Shanahan does. So it depends if there's a balance." Logan Ryan said, "I played for Vrabel in 2020, and it wasn't that long ago. And I saw Derrick Henry rush for 2,000 yards. If you go to other organizations, there are superstars in those organizations that never get challenged, not one day. And I felt like Vrabel came in and started challenging guys the same way he challenged the bottom of the roster." Leader of men. Mike Vrabel understands the identity of a football team. He understands that a football team needs an identity. And he understands how to establish that, keeping everybody on the same page, right? Making sure that the communication is pivotal and that it's clean and everybody is aware of who's talking to who, why they're talking to that person. It's all kind of funneled through Mike Vrabel. This franchise, this coaching staff is going to be on the same page. And this team is going to have an identity from day one. This team already has an identity just from hiring Mike Vrabel. And we saw Mayo. Mayo wanted to, establish an identity. He failed tremendously in establishing that culture and identity. Vrabel will have that culture. He will have that identity as a football team from right now, this second. And he's going to make sure that everybody in the room understands what that identity is. He's got principles. He's got guidelines on how to lead a football team. He's also been successful, folks. And I know there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and there's a lot of different ways of people painting and framing Mike Vrabel's time in Tennessee. He won 12 games in 2021. They made it to the AFC Championship game in 2019 after beating Brady. And then they beat Lamar Jackson, I believe, in the Ravens. And they then lost to Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, which to me is not something you should be ashamed of. And his team's competitive. His team is always competitive, whether he's going through a billion injuries. He gets the most out of guys. People talk about his roster, right? His roster was loaded in Tennessee. In 2021, the Tennessee Titans fielded 91 players. That's an NFL record. I don't know if it's still the record, but at the time, that was an NFL record. The Titans fielded 91 guys in 2021. They were absolutely ravaged by injury. It was a MASH unit across the board, playing 91 guys. Do you know how many injuries you've got to go through to play 91 guys? That's insane. Again, at the time, it was an NFL record. And even though that team fielded 91 players, they won 12 games. You want to talk about facing adversity? You want to talk about handling challenges and injuries? How many times did we hear this year? Oh, the defense is bad because Jawan Bentley's out. You kidding me? How many coaches could win 12 games while fielding 91 players in that season? I'm going to tell you, not many. Not many at all. There's so much to like to me about this hire by the Patriots. I do remind you, don't forget to give us that like if you're watching on YouTube, which all of you are right now. Make sure you click that thumbs up button. It helps us an awful lot. Don't forget to click that thumbs up. Don't forget to throw a comment in as well. The likes and the comments help us build this community. And I see your super chats. I'm going to get to your super chats. I can't stay on for too long. I've got to actually host a show on 98.5 coming up at 2 o'clock. So less than 3 hours away, I'll be hosting a show on 98.5 with Mark Dondero. 2 to 5:30. So I'll take all of your calls. We'll go through all of this with Vrabel from top to bottom. We'll go through the Mike Vrabel hiring on 98.5, the Sports Hub. Again, that's coming up at 2 o'clock from 2 to 5:30. Myself and Mark Dondero on 98.5. He knows the market. Mike Vrabel knows the market, right? He's media savvy. You thought that Mayo would be media savvy. No. Mike Vrabel is media savvy. He knows how to say things, when to say them. He knows how to get a message across. Again, clear lines of communication. He understands that messaging. He faced all the questions that a head coach will face down in Tennessee. He's been through all of it. He's been through all of it as a head coach. Team struggling, team winning, quarterback playing well, quarterback not playing well. A lot of people don't bring this up, but Vrabel in Tennessee, he had 6 different starting quarterbacks during his 6 years in Tennessee. But people want to hold the record of the last couple of years against him when he had Malik Willis and Will Levis and a broken down Ryan Tannehill. He went 9-11 with Tannehill in 2022-2023. So even though that team was aging out, even though there were a bunch of decisions made, like trading A.J. Brown, they lost 2 of their best offensive linemen. Tannehill was pretty much washed at that point. Vrabel still went 9-11 with Tannehill as his quarterback when Tannehill started. 9-11. So almost 500 in those last 2 years. The reason why his record was so bad was because they were trying to figure it out. They were playing Malik Willis to see if he could be a quarterback. Then they drafted Will Levis to see if he could be the guy. And they got terrible quarterback play. Terrible quarterback play. The thing I like about Vrabel is he's curious. Super curious. He's always trying to get better. He's always trying to improve. And I was reading this story from Zach Rosenblatt at The Athletic about how Vrabel is curious in his time in Cleveland and how he just tried to learn and get better, right? Think about it. Vrabel could have sat on his tuchus. He could have said, okay, I'm going to take this year off. I'm going to go vacation. I'm going to go do whatever I want to do. I'm going to go live the life. But no, he went to Cleveland. He went to Cleveland and he studied in Cleveland because he wants to get better. He's curious about how he can improve. And let's go to that Rosenblatt story in The Athletic. Browns GM Andrew Berry viewed it as a unique opportunity to bring in someone of Vrabel's stature to enhance their player development program while helping in other areas. Berry and Kevin Stefanski put on the full court press to recruit Vrabel. Vrabel did not have a relationship with either man outside of interactions at league meetings. So he didn't go to a place where he was going to be comfortable. He went to Cleveland. He didn't really know Berry and Stefanski well, but he went there. Rosenblatt in The Athletic writes that the fact that Vrabel did not have a relationship with Berry and Stefanski made the job more appealing. It was an opportunity to spend the year learning from an analytically minded organization that does things a little differently from what he was used to. So again, he went to Cleveland because he wanted to work with guys that he did not really know. He went to Cleveland this last year because he wanted to learn the analytical side of football. He wanted to see it from a different viewpoint because he's curious. He's a sponge. So he goes to the Browns and he wants to learn what the Browns are doing in their front office. What methods do they utilize? I find that appealing. He wanted to go somewhere where things are done differently, a little differently from what he was used to, and a chance to stay in the NFL and keep an eye on how other teams around the league, especially the ones with potential job openings, were going about their business. Add in the fact that he'd be returning to Northeast Ohio, the fit was right. And then Rosenblatt in The Athletic writes this: Andrew Berry leaned on Vrabel, hired both for his personnel and coaching acumen during both the free agency and draft processes, particularly the latter, talking about the draft. Vrabel found that process, seeing how Berry prepared for the draft, to be educational. Vrabel said he was permitted to read the way Browns scouts and talent evaluators wrote their scouting reports, how they incorporated analytics, and how Berry, quote, asked questions that would create some critical thinking for coaches, unquote. Berry gave Vrabel a list of prospects to study and asked Vrabel his opinion on how he would approach certain parts of the evaluation process. Berry also included Vrabel on some of the top 30 visits when prospects came to the team facility for interviews and evaluations. So Vrabel was working this year. He was working this year, and he was learning from people that he didn't really know, but he was learning how to do things differently, how to approach things differently. He's only 49 years old. I get a kick out of this idea of like people saying, well, Gerard Mayo could be better. Gerard Mayo could get better. What if Gerard Mayo improved? What if he evolved? As if Mike Vrabel can't improve or evolve. He's 49. And he went to Cleveland this last season so he could evolve some of his thinking. It's not like Mike Vrabel's done. It's not like he's 70 years old and he's tapping out. He's going to continue to turn over stones and try to figure out what he can do better at a higher level because he's a curious guy. And he gives you credibility. He gives you credibility. I have so much more to say. I honestly do. Again, I'm coming up on 98.5 The Sports at 2 o'clock. I'll be on with Mark Dondero from 2 to 5:30. All right, let's hit some of these super chats because I promised you I would. $5 super chat from Choo Choo. Good morning, Mr. Nick. Sorry, but we are ruined with this guy. All right, so Choo Choo's out. We're ruined. We're ruined. Mike Vrabel ruined the organization. Interesting. Okay, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Thank you, Choo Choo. Choo Choo, not a fan of the Mike Vrabel hire. Chris Chapman, happy it's a done deal. We'll listen to Nick and Mark this afternoon on 98.5. Go Patriots. Let's turn things around for 2025. Chris, thank you for the 10. Of course, when we talk about Vrabel, coaching is part of it, but so is talent. And this team needs more talent. This team needs more talent. This team needs to add in a lot of different places. But I do think that Mike Vrabel helps you. Because I do think players, there's going to be some interest, right? Free agency. Again, Vrabel brings credibility. He gets the locker room to buy in. He'll have a coaching staff that I think will believe in him and believe in the program. It just brings a steadiness. It brings a stability to this organization. And I think with Vrabel as the head coach, it is a much more interesting team that you might want to sign with compared to what it was just a week ago with Mike Vrabel and a bunch of unknowns. Thank you, Chris, for the 10. Choo Choo. Like video, guys. Thank you, Choo Choo. Appreciate the $2 super chat. Cool, Genuine Phil, $2 super chat. Good hire, but I like Ben as well. Can Ben be OC? No, I don't think Ben Johnson's going to be OC. I don't think he'll make a lateral move. I think Ben Johnson will be the head coach of either the Raiders, the Bears, or the Jaguars. He's going to end up at one of those three places. And look, I would have been happy with Ben Johnson as well. I said that. I know it's like people will say, oh, you're sitting on the fence. No, I genuinely was into both Vrabel and Johnson. I thought Johnson had more questions because, again, he's never run a program. I'll give you an idea. So I go through like pros and cons when I look at prospective candidates. And to me, Mike Vrabel had 13 pros and 3 cons. And I think I'll try to get into the cons on tomorrow's podcast because I just don't have time right now with the radio show coming up in a couple of hours. But, yeah, the cons. I got 3 cons and I got 13 pros for Vrabel. For Ben Johnson, I think I had 9 or 10 pros and 5 cons. So the pros outweighed the cons for both guys by a significant margin. I would have been okay with Ben Johnson, but I wanted Vrabel. I think Vrabel is the better hire for where this team is right now. Anonymous, $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10. Agree with Nick. 100% different vibe for the team than a week ago. Demote or fire Wolf, and I'm happy. Thanks for the Sunday podcast, Nick. Thank you, Anonymous, for the 10. We'll see what happens with Wolf. I know Greg Bedard wrote today that, Wolf might get a chance to work this offseason because of, the idea that he was changing around the grading system and it's only been one draft and stuff. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Vrabel brings in somebody. There'll be a lot of stuff coming up this week. Trust me when I tell you. Casey Reed, $20 super chat. Thank you for the 20. Big win for the Pats. Now they need to do a real OC search. no corners cut and whining from the media about a sham process. Do the work. If it's Josh, then cool. You did the right thing. Big roadie win last night. It was a big roadie win last night. They needed that one. Yeah, as far as the OC search, Greg Bedard wrote this morning, my buddy Greg, he doesn't necessarily see Josh McDaniels as the favorite. He didn't say that McDaniels is out, but he doesn't see McDaniels as the favorite. And I know both Bedard and Tom Curran have said they expect Vrabel to have a process with his staff. He's going to go through it. And he's not going to walk in and just say, these are my guys. He has a list of guys, but he's going to go through the process, interview coordinator, prospects, and he'll go from there. So I do think from what the reporting is from Tommy, Curran, and Greg, that Vrabel's going to be a little bit more patient than people might think when it comes to a staff. And look, that's another part of why it's great to get this done on January 12th. A lot of these teams, they're not going to be bringing their guys in until late January, right? Maybe even early February, depending on the process. You hit the ground running now. Vrabel gets hired right now. He gets a head start on everything. He gets to talk to every coordinator that he wants to talk to, right? Thank you, Casey. Choo-choo back. 260 watching. Let's hit 250 likes. They don't show me how many likes happen on YouTube. We're at 276 right now. It'd be great to get, eventually on this video, 500 likes would be great. I think the best we've ever done was around 450. But yeah, more likes, the better. Again, thank you, Choo Choo. S27, $2 super chat. You think we get 10 wins? I love the hire. I don't know about the wins yet. Let's see what the roster looks like. We got to get through free agency. We got to get through the draft. With this team, I will tell you, if Vrabel was the coach of this team in 2024, I think they get 6 or 7 wins. Not counting the Buffalo game. Like, I think this team could have won 7 games, 8 games with Vrabel. But they obviously didn't. Greg jumps in with a $10 super chat. Thanks, Nick, for our breaking news podcast. Thank you for the 10, Greg. It is much appreciated. Ryan jumps in, $5 super chat. I love the hire. He's the right choice to build a new culture. My question is, how much control do you think he will have in the building? I think he'll have a significant amount of control, Ryan. Look, he had all the leverage. He knew the Patriots wanted him, and I'm sure he used that to take advantage in negotiations, and I would imagine he's going to have a significant amount of power in that building. And even if Elliott Wolf is still here, and even if Elliott Wolf is, quote-unquote, running the draft, I think Vrabel will likely have the final say on a lot. Thank you, Ryan. Hamza, $10 super chat. Thank you. So they're going to fire AVP, all the developments for Drake all season long now, hire Vrabel, bringing back new OC like Nick Caley, Josh, Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees has been mentioned. I know him from his Notre Dame days. Not the biggest fan of Tommy Rees. Nick Caley is a name that keeps coming up. He's still out in L.A. He would be interesting. Josh McDaniels, again, we talked about him a little while ago. I don't think you get rid of all like the development of Drake May. I mean, he developed. He's better off now than he was 7 months ago. It depends on who you bring in. I would like to see somebody who's worked with quarterbacks and has a history of working with quarterbacks. Maybe they try to keep Van Pelt as the quarterback's coach. How would that work? Could that work? We'll see. And then we've got Terry jumping in with a $100 super chat. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate the Sunday podcast. We'll listen from South Carolina via Alexa to you and Mark on 98.5, a suddenly enthusiastic fan. So Terry is very, very happy. And I appreciate the generosity with the $100 super chat from you, Terry. As I always say, thank you for the support. It is very, 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 very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Man, the comments are popping. Things are going crazy. Busy show. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. I got to run. I got to leave in about 90 minutes to head to 98.5. I haven't even taken a shower yet, done any exercises, had breakfast. So I got to run. I'll talk to you guys at 2 o'clock, 98.5, 2 to 5:30 with Mark Dondero. I'll talk to you soon. Appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for the super chats. Mike Vrabel, the new head coach of your New England Patriots. I think it's an exciting, exciting day.